Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and today I am going to start off with a little bit of coloring. If you don't like to watch coloring, please do feel free to sort of fast forward to the actual card making process. But this is such a pretty image, and so I set up my sort of close-up camera so that you can really see how I approach my coloring, and from this angle my hand doesn't block what I'm coloring, so I feel like even though it is sort of from the side, hopefully it's a little bit more clear. I'm coloring with color pencils, and color pencils do work a little bit better if you are coloring onto paper or cardstock that has a little bit of texture, a little bit of tooth to it, because that bit of texture will help to grab the pigment off of your color pencils. And if you're not using a paper that has a little bit of tooth to it, just be careful to really use light pressure, because it's, in any case, you want to start with light pressure so that you're not compressing or smoothing down that cardstock too much. But I think on smooth cardstock, which is actually what I'm coloring on right now, it can be hard to really blend your colors if you use too firm of a hand. And so that's sort of why you see me holding the pencil pretty far back on the barrel of the pencil. And that is a trick that I've learned from watching other videos of people coloring with color pencil. And it's just a nice way to help you to actually keep that light pressure, because it's hard to put really firm pressure when you're holding it from so far back from the tip. And what I like to do with color pencil coloring is I do like to start with the darkest color, try to block in where I think the shadows would be. And again, I like to just start with a light pressure. That way, if it doesn't look quite right, at least it's not super dark. And so it doesn't, I can often sort of just try to massage it a little bit, work with it, maybe color over it with a lighter color. And that's the nice thing about color pencil work, because you can layer different colors. You can also even erase your color pencil coloring if you really need to. But it does, it is very forgiving, even though for me, compared to coloring with markers, it does take longer, because I do ultimately end up probably coloring the same area 3, maybe 4 times, just to get the highlights and the shadows exactly how I would like them, because where it starts to look a little bit more dimensional is when there's contrast between the light and the dark. And so in order to just kind of work with it slowly and let it progress, I do like to use multiple layers so that I can really do that fine adjustment. So if I go in too early, too dark, it's hard to correct from that sometimes. And so it's always easier for me anyhow to start lighter and then go darker where I feel like I need to deepen some of those shadows. And I feel like once there's an entire layer of your first layer, it starts to look a little bit more clear to me anyhow, where I do need some more shadows and where I do need to keep it light. And for me, when it's just all white, it can be hard to identify where the shadows and where the highlights should be. But once I get some color it then starts to become obvious where it looks a little too flat or where it feels like it needs a little bit more dimension. And so that's the other reason why I like to just do multiple passes and adjust as I go, especially since you can, when you're working with light pressure and light layers, you can make those adjustments a lot easier. So this is actually a digital image from Amanda Hicks. Her Etsy shop is called The Whimsical Art Witch, and I love her artistic style. It's really, really fun to color. This one in particular has a lot of small, fine details, which is why I chose to color it with color pencil because, and the other tip that I would definitely recommend when coloring with color pencils is to sharpen your pencil often and keep that point nice and sharp, because it will help you get into all of the small, fine detail areas in a way that I can't do well with my alcohol markers. Even with the brush tip markers that I have, it's still really, really hard for me to get into all of the really small areas. And so that's why I really like coloring with color pencil, even though it does, as I mentioned, take a little bit longer than coloring with markers. But like I mentioned also, in a lot of ways it's more forgiving, and then, you know, I can also really get into those fine detail areas. The finishing touch that I like to do on illustrations like these is to just anchor the image a little bit by using some pastels, and I'm just gonna go for a really soft sort of kind of almost a little vignetting where it's coming from the center of the girl and going outwards. So a little bit of a glow almost, but I'll be using this really light blue. It just helps her to feel like she's just not floating on a white piece of paper. And so I feel like it helps to anchor her a little bit. It's not a full-on scene. I'm not going for an actual background of sky or anything like that. It's just a little splash of color behind her. And I feel like you could do this with color pencil if you want. I do like using my pastels. These happen to be Jane Davenport, because you can really get that nice soft edge towards as it goes outwards. And so I like it for that. And then also pastels it is a little bit easier to kind of cover a larger area. And that's another thing that you could do with color pencil work, is you could lay down a layer of pastel just to get an initial block of color, and then deepen your shadows and adjust everything with your color pencil work on top of that. And so that might be a way to really kind of speed up the process if you didn't want to use color pencil for all of the layers. So that's also a really good option as well. And the card that I will be making is going to be a really simple easel card. So what I've already done is I've trimmed a piece of solid color cardstock in this lovely green. I tried to match the green of the illustration as best I could. And that piece was cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'll be making a US A2 size card. And that layer of green cardstock is going to cover the entire front of the card. Then I've already scored my card front, which will be top folding. And I think I scored it at 2 inches or so from the bottom. You can really put that score line directly in the middle if you want. You can put it anywhere. It just depends on your personal aesthetic and basically how much you want the top panel to be tilted. Then this will be my easel stopper. So from that same solid green colored cardstock, I've cut out a strip that is 4 1/4 wide, and I stamped and white heat embossed the sentiment. So this card I felt like would be really nice for St. Patrick's Day, so I chose the good luck sentiment to put on the bottom there. And this way I can really display the illustration and not have to put a sentiment on the front of the card. But when this is put on display, you do have that sentiment there, and you do have that full, almost a piece of art that's been kind of framed to be put on display. So I love easel cards for presenting really lovely illustrations like these from Amanda. Thanks so much for joining me today. Until next time, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye.